Hello, everyone, and welcome to Inspire, Innovate, Ignite Conversations That Count. And my name is Josette Diaz. I'm your facilitator today. My business is Guidance to Wellness, and I'm a guidance champion to women, transforming women's lives through self-mastery. So today we're going to be discussing navigating the gifts of a highly sensitive person. So I'd like to welcome you to this topic because it's something that I think that some of us may be aware of around sensitivity, yet we may not really understand it. And so that's what our expert panelists are going to be helping us with today, because there is 15 to 20% of the population is actually highly sensitive. And we're going to dive into a few other questions around this. And I'd like to start by introducing our experts that have been hand chosen to be on this panel. And our first panelist expert is Bronwyn Jane. I hope I pronounced your name correctly. And Bronwyn Jane is compassionate and grounded international psychic medium and spiritual coach, empowering people with open hearts through an authentic connection to spirit. Bronwyn provides heartfelt readings and powerful coaching to illuminate your pathway. Then we have our beautiful Jan Ravenfeather. If you can just give us a wave, everyone will be able to see who you are. And Jan is a ordained priestess of the divine feminine energy in the universe, whom she lovingly calls goddess, also known as priestess Dicema. I hope I pronounced that correctly, Jan. And Jan identifies as a multi-faith minister, activist, feminist, spiritual warrior, death doula, artist, and creator of ceremonies and sacred tools. Jan has been called to bring attention and change to the injustices that women face in their lives, in their many forms, and mostly she is passionate about helping to heal women from trauma of all types, but especially sexual, caused in childhood and in adulthood, so that they will become whole and who they are meant to be in this world. Jan is also the host of the Many Faces of the Goddess Tribe. And we also have Katie Yevmenova. Oh, please correct my pronunciation.
It's Yevmenova.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Katie. Katie is a creator of Totally Sunny Life. Her passion for being present in every moment of living led to her help women cultivate deep connections with their souls and guide them to achieve their deepest soul purpose in their lives. Through her gifts of seeing people deeply, asking powerful questions, she helps connect them to their truth and be their very best selves. Katie blends her knowledge of Akashic records, Reiki, yoga, meditation, conscious language, and essential oils to guide women through deep transformation while being a support by divine guidance. Then we have Zinzi Bianca Sullivan. Thank you, Katie. And Zinzi is a mindfulness coach who helps introverted women find balance and calm and reconnect with their feminine spirit and purpose with ease. Zinzi believes that we can have it all: purpose, balance, and abundance, and that being introverted is a powerful gift to be understood and celebrated. Zinzi works with clients one-on-one, runs sacred circles, and offers Vedic astrology readings. And our last but not least is our beautiful Miranda Carr. And Miranda is drawing on her personal experiences as a highly sensitive person. Miranda helps other HSPs reconcile this gift with the life experiences they encounter. For example, most HSPs experience emotions like shock, denial, and a loss of self-esteem on a deeper level when they experience an adversity, setback, or failure. For some, this is the beginning of a downward spiral and can even lead to destructive behaviors, one from which they may never recover. Miranda helps HSPs rebound from these challenges so they rise to their highest potential. So you can tell just from me reading those bios that we have a beautiful collaboration of very strong and expert panelists to help guide you on our topic today. So thank you, ladies, for all being here. It's an honor to be on this panel with you to facilitate. And I'd like to start off by asking a question around self-care. So as a highly sensitive person, self-care can sometimes be a hit and miss. And if you have, as an HSP, you also have a different nervous system. So are there any recommendations that you may have around how a highly sensitive person can respond to their environment and how they would differently approach self-care for themselves based on their sensitivity and handling overwhelm and overstimulation in their environment? So that's kind of what I wanted to ask you all to just start the conversation off around self-care. So I'm going to go with how I see all of you on my screen. So first up, Jan, I'd like to ask you your response on that question.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Josette. And hello, lovely sisters on this panel and everyone who's watching. I actually am a highly sensitive person. It's taken me a long, long time to find that out. Being an older generation, we didn't often have access to things like personality disorders and things that were happening to us mentally back in the day. So I've had to grow up kind of not understanding who I was within my own experience being a highly sensitive person until just recently, say in the last 15 years, really. So answering that as a highly sensitive person, I still struggle with self-care. I still have issues with putting myself first in a way where I will look after myself, and that means physically, mentally, and spiritually. Although that is improving as I discover more about myself and I can give myself a kind of a timetable, because as a highly organised person, if I see it as a part of my day that I need to structure, that works better for my brain. If I don't have a structure to follow, I just don't do anything for myself. I don't eat well. I overindulge in things that I shouldn't indulge in, and I really need to pull myself back by just taking a step back, being aware of what I'm doing, so taking a step back and just following a creative order for myself, and then I can accomplish things and then I feel better within myself. So that means personal care, mental meditation and mindfulness. Mindfulness often really, really helps me, just stepping back and going into my heart and my mind at the same time. And physically looking after myself, it has been also a problem, not going for a walk, or not even showering every day sometimes, that's also part of it. So I think it's a very personal thing as well, which needs to be adjusted for the individual, how it works for that particular person.
Yes, that's great. I loved what you had to say about structure and having creative order. That's such a lovely way to think of it and to put it into context, because I think that it can really be difficult as a highly sensitive person sometimes to really harness that ability to not just be feeling everything all the time, right?
It's actually been a lifelong struggle.
Yeah.
A gift, but also a struggle.
Right. Right. Yes, there's always the polarity.
Yes.
Thank you, Jan.
Thank you.
Bronwyn, am I pronouncing your name right?
You sure are.
Okay, great. Thank you.
So first of all, thank you for having me here.
Yes,
part of the process.
Yeah. Can you tell us your advice about self-care for a highly sensitive person?
For me, it is about discerning what's ours that we're feeling and what's not. As highly sensitive people, empaths, sometimes we take on energy that we think is ours and it's not. So it's allowing yourself that space, that moment to pause and assess, how did I feel a few moments before I approached this person, approached this situation? Did I feel this way? And if the answer is no, then we really need to take a moment to go, okay, what shifted and changed? Am I feeling energy that I may not be aware of? And is that mine? Is it someone else's? Am I processing it as mine? Am I getting a little bit confused? So it's about being really aware of yourself, taking that moment before to just go, how was I before I came, as I said, near the person or near the situation? So I'm going to say part of self-care is really knowing yourself, taking a moment to do that, putting the work in, to connecting to your own emotions, even connecting to your own body, what that feels like. Because sometimes we may, even as really sensitive people, feel things in our body and they're not ours. We've just walked into the energy of someone else and we're misinterpreting that as our own. So it's really about being really aware of yourself, physically, mentally, and obviously spiritually. That is a process. It's not a fast process by any stretch of the imagination, but it is about actually starting to be really conscious about that. So I'm going to, that's what I would encourage everyone to say. Let's just be really aware. And I say everyone, it's not just highly sensitive people, because everyone interprets energy they don't necessarily realize. It's just more for highly sensitive people. So we need to understand that. We also need to, I'm going to say, as highly sensitive people, give ourselves a break. So part of self-care is not to beat yourself up. It's like, if we're not expected to be perfect, we're not expected to have it all worked out. This is a journey. It's about learning as we go. So as highly sensitive people, when we muck up, when we get it wrong, when we, show up as we wouldn't want to just go, that's okay. So that is also part of self-care. And then there's other things like shifting energy that's not ours, grounding, that walking, moving that out of our physical, being really aware of that, then thinking of our actual energetic body and putting some practices around that type of thing as well. So for me, self-care is a multifaceted process. It's not necessarily a big process. It's not complex. It's all just about bringing awareness around us as an energetic being.
That's fantastic. And I love that you incorporate other non-highly sensitive people into that feeling in your body, because that's such an important thing that I think all of us agree that, feeling what your body is telling you, it leads the way, right? So it's not just for highly sensitive, even though highly sensitive may feel it more intensely. So that was really good advice. Okay, so I'm going to move on to Zinzi.
Hi, everyone. So lovely to be here. Thanks for having me. I have a few things. Well, I think what Bronwyn and Jan have said so far would definitely be encouraging people to explore those areas what I would add to that is also around boundaries. So when you're this idea of giving a lot, we might be giving a lot, receiving a lot of energy. So setting up those boundaries for ourselves, whether that's energetically or whether it's physically or in organizing our day, and knowing that when we're giving ourselves that time and honoring our own boundaries, that we are ultimately serving others to the highest as well. When we're energetically depleted, when we don't have much get up and go, we can't really be in our highest version of ourselves to serve others as well. And another extension of that I would add as well is just time for retreat. When we're in the energy fields of a lot of other people, or in a very active job, or taking a lot of action and not having really time to process all that we're experiencing. So retreat might be time for meditation or just quiet space on your own, or it might actually be going on retreat, connecting with other like-minded people, being in community and having some dedicated time, whether that's at one point in the year that can just allocate yourself that time. So really allows you the time and support to process and let go of what isn't ours, what isn't serving us, and reconnecting with ourselves.
That's lovely. And I like that your boundaries and retreating actually kind of go hand in hand, right? Because it becomes a boundary to have that opportunity to give yourself to just retreat. I know it can be difficult in like large crowds. I find that kind of difficult. And so I know I can be there for a little while, and then I need that time to just decompress and, be by myself and sort of recharge. It takes a lot sometimes to be in a crowd.
Yeah, it does. And knowing when we're giving a lot and allowing ourselves that time, like saying time for or reaffirming those boundaries and that they're really helpful. It can sometimes feel really good to be active and proactive, but then you get to the end of the week and so exhausted. So knowing those or recognizing those signals within ourselves that it's time to kind of slow down and come back in before we crash.
That's beautiful. Yeah, it goes right into what Jan and Bronwyn were saying at the same time. So it's really great. Thank you so much. And I would like to move on to Katie.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for including me in this beautiful space. And I'm going to echo what everyone said so far as bringing that awareness and intentional steps into caring for yourself. So we talked about routines and things like that. And just sometimes it's helpful for me to remove myself almost like from myself and imagine how I would care for somebody if it wasn't me, right? Like I sometimes think, as a child, right? You would want them to be outside in the sunshine, getting that in. You would want them to have the most nourishing food, a time to decompress and some active time. So just being really mindful in your own schedule. And as we're making commitments, knowing, okay, if this is going to be a big crowd, right? A little bit of preparation. And one of them, since he mentioned, is meditation or breath work. So finding a breath work that works really well for you, almost to set yourself up, like to prepare your body, your nervous system. Maybe it's grounding. Somebody mentioned like putting your feet on the ground to allow that grounding energy to come in. So your nervous system is prepared as we go into environments that might be different from or where we are aware our energy shifts. So that's one of the ways that I intentionally schedule out my days. And of course, then there's things that come in, that are out of our control situations or things like that. And that's where a tool can come in. It could be, a breathing technique that you do, because when we begin to practice our self-care routines, our body becomes so aware of them. And all you need is like a minute and your body's like, oh, I know what we're doing. We need to shift into this space. So just practicing that with yourself so that is available to you at any time. I love doing that with essential oils because it's so powerful. Through our sense of smell, we can access our limbic system and seat of our emotions. So you can, if you work with an oil, let's say it's lavender, right? And it's your calming, it's your kind of reset oil. If you have it on hand in a situation where it's going to be out of your control, or you're going to be shaken a little bit, it's your sense of smell is going to help you to bring you back to that space so you can nourish yourself and take care of yourself, and then recoup, retreat, as Lindsay said, afterwards.
Beautiful. I love that. Those are great tools to offer, especially to highly sensitive people. I think that, having that using sense of smell can just really calm you. And so knowing what that smell is for you by, like Bronwyn was saying, using the body and having a system like Jan shared, and Zinzi with the boundaries and resetting. So it just all plays right into such a beautiful way for a highly sensitive to feel secure. That's what it feels to me when I listen to all of you give such great advice. So thank you, Katie. And let's move on to Miranda. Thank you for waiting. I'd love to hear what you have to say about self-care.
Well, before I do that, it's raining here, cats and dogs, thunder and lightning. So I hope that background noise is not going to cause too much of a problem. But
Okay.
I think everyone's covered quite a bit, a lot of tools and techniques. My one bit of advice for self-care would be to trust yourself, to listen to your body, as you said, Josette, to let your body lead the way. And when you're doing self-care, it's very easy to take on board what's out in the world. Do this, it will help you. But I think we also need to, we don't all fit in that one box. I mean, as it is, as HSPs, we already don't fit in that standard box. So my thing is to trust yourself. My personal experiences, one was that I tried meditation, just didn't work for me. But when I tried walking meditation, that worked for me. I like that. Walking out in the nature, that worked for me. So I think listen to your body, trust yourself, and then to allow yourself to discover what works for you. It's trial and error. And we don't all have to fit in one way. We're unique. Yeah. So there's a unique solution.
That's right. And Jan was saying the same thing earlier about like finding what works for you, right? The thing that actually works for you. And it is going to be different for everyone. So I would like to move on to how to reframe your life as a highly sensitive person, because seeing your traits as a gift rather than seeing them as a negative, I think we can be very hard on ourselves, especially, I mean, every human being can be hard on themselves. And as women, we tend to be really self-critical. So reframing our inner critic and the perfectionist that a lot of highly sensitive people tend to lean into a great deal. That reframing, how do you internalize other people's reframing how you internalize other people's emotions. So those are kind of the things that I wanted to ask all of you, what you could share with the audience on maybe tools or something that you offer to individuals that could help them. So I'd like to mix it up a little bit. And if anyone would like to start off, we can just sort of be a little bit fluid with this round on this question. So is there anyone who'd like to start by replying to that particular question we have on the board on reframing?
I can start with that. I'll kind of looking through a lens, right? Like different lens, as you said, seeing the uniqueness in it. And also, I think it's helpful to kind of navigate some of the myths about, you know, what we think others feel like, or what, you know, if a person is doing something, you know, the appearance on the outside of it, because we really don't know what is happening on the inside. But yet we create, sometimes our mind wants something so, you know, concrete that it creates a story, and then we don't fit into our own story that we created. That is not even true. So that's very helpful as you're working through the perfectionism mindset, and you know, you start to ask questions, you know, what is this perfect outcome that you've created, or this perfect way of for you of being? And then once you realize that it's where it's coming from, because it could be just not you, it could be, you know, from society, that you absorbed some things, you know, through society, through your family, you know, other kind of environmental ways. And then as we begin to kind of uncover and peel the layers and see what really matters to us, sometimes it doesn't, a lot of times it doesn't match up to that other part. So, you know, especially, and I think that's true for most people, but especially, you know, when you are highly sensitive, it just like flows through your body, you process it differently. So somebody mentioned this already, giving yourself that, being kind with yourself and being very compassionate with yourself is a way of reframing of what we see and how we see things. And really, it's almost like rebuilding how we think or how we analyze things. So that's one of the things that, you know, when in conversation, you know, when you have conversation, when you have clients that are working through some mindsets, and there's this, you know, like they feel it in their body, they're just, you know, either irritated or not satisfied. When you start to break those down, those emotions around those change as well. So as far as reframing goes, it's really, you know, getting to the truth of it as much as you can on a given day. And it's not, you know, once again, because there's no perfection, right? There's no perfect, it's only process, right? It's only practice. So practicing that and seeing where that leads you creates so much freedom, that creates that flow of abundance, and just makes you flow different in your everyday.
Yeah, that's great. I like that using kindness and compassion for yourself is a really nice way to reframe that feeling of the story. So that's really insightful, and I think helpful for anyone who's highly sensitive. So thank you, Katie. Who else would like to jump in?
I can jump in.
Yes, Nancy.
When I early on in my earlier career, when I was navigating a career change, I listened to a lot of Eckhart Tolle, and what I gained from that was just how, like, becoming more aware of our own egos, so that when and how much power we give away. So when and that sort of ties back to the inner critic and being a perfectionist, is essentially we're wanting to please someone else. And like Katie was saying, it's sort of like you don't necessarily know what's going on in that person's experience. So you're creating a story of it yourself, and you're giving away your power rather than reframing it and going like, what is important to me right now? How do I honor myself in this moment. And again, tying back to what I was saying earlier, when we're serving ourselves, then we can serve others to the highest. So yeah, being aware of that. And then when we're not so dependent on other people's praise, and it goes both ways, when I'm getting praise or when I'm getting criticized, then being able to see that as that's just a flow of things. It's not about me. It's something that, like, not getting attached to the positive or the negative, just allowing that to flow on and be part of life. And then we can not be holding on to that so tightly, which then that it drives that anxiety. So it's a lot easier said than done, but just on a very practical level, when someone praises you, just notice how the body reacts, how you're reacting. Are you all of a sudden really happy and excited? And then the same if you get some critique or some criticism coming your way, how do you feel about that? And seeing if you can allow both of those experiences to just sort of wash off you a little bit. It's like, it's not dependent. I'm not dependent on that
Yes.
for my own self-worth.
That's such valuable information. And I love the depth of that, because it's so true. I find that so true in my own life, that peeling those layers back and really understanding yourself and where you stand with how you perceive something, based on the feeling, and where does it come from, is just so important. And is it driven by the ego? And and I think that's so important what you address around praise, because I think we all want acceptance, right? I mean, it's a human condition. And so I love that. That's absolutely great advice. Thank you. Anyone else want to? Come on, Jan.
Hi, Zinzi, thank you so much for that. I also read Eckhart Tolle's book, A New Earth, and that was a game changer for me. And I would recommend anyone to read that, because that that just pointed me and gave me practical things to think about. So I think really, for me personally, reframing myself as a highly sensitive person was getting to know myself. I had to get to know myself first, and peeling one little layer of the onion away at one time, taking things in little snippets of little bites instead of the whole chunk, because that can be overwhelming. And even self-care can be overwhelming, because you've got all these people saying, this is how you do it, this is how you do it, this is what you should be doing, and even that can be overwhelming. So taking tiny little chunks out of things at a time, because going back to astrology, I'm actually a Virgo with a Scorpio moon. So, oh my God, I've got a double whammy. So I have to analyze everything with my brain to understand it, and then I feel all the emotions. So it's like I've had this twin experience happening my whole life. So for me, I need to find out why first. And even with spirituality, if I can't connect reality with also spirituality in some way in my brain, I can't process it. So I looked up about the sensory processing sensitivity called by Bianca Acevedo, who I haven't actually heard of, but she says it's a biologically based trait characterized by increased awareness in sensitivity to the environment. It's becoming an area of scientific and societal interest that we have stronger brain activation in the regions of awareness, empathy, and processing. And when I found that out, that gives me some kind of relief to think, now I can understand it. I'm not going crazy. That's something I can work with, and my analytical brain can actually go into full mode and work it out within myself. I went to see a psychologist many years ago when I was having issues and I was having panic attacks. I've lived with depression for 40 years, a highly anxious environment I grew up in, of course, that, you know, and it goes on. But I went to see this psychologist about panic attacks. It was one of the issues. And he explained to me that if I just relaxed during the panic attack, I wouldn't be feeding the panic attack any more adrenaline, and therefore it would go away. And that was like a revelation. No one had actually given me any practical advice to fight a panic attack. It's just like, oh, she's getting another panic attack, but no one knew how to deal with it or didn't tell me how to deal with it. And having that really click something and I could deal with it. And I've never had one since. So reframing my life is peeling back an onion peel, a little chunk at a time. And then becoming aware of myself, getting to know myself has been the major turning point in understanding and being able to live with this.
Mm-hmm. So chunking down the situation, like
For me, yes.
Yes. I love that. Because I think we have a tendency to just like, the advice you received was so great. Around taking the attention off of the anxiety, right? So because it then just gets bigger and bigger. So chunking it down is like such a nice way to do it in ease, I think is what I'm trying to say. That's what it feels like to me. So I love that. That's beautiful, Jan. Would anyone else, like we have Miranda and Ronan, who would you, either one of you like to comment on this as well around reframing?
I will. So for me, that reframing of being highly sensitive, I like to look at it two ways. One, if we're fully aware and on a journey, and those that are highly sensitive and maybe being categorized in a different way. And so I'll look at the first. So when we are highly sensitive and we're aware that we're a highly sensitive person, for me, one of the wonderful opportunities of being like this is to be able to pull in that awareness of the different conscious levels that people are on. So we're all on different conscious levels. So therefore, when we experience something as a highly sensitive person from someone else that is on a different conscious level, we, with awareness, can detach some of that humanness, where we might get upset, we might, feel a certain way. And with that real awareness that someone else is on a different conscious level, we can call it a journey, they're at a different place, whatever word we want to use for that, it just makes it a little bit easy when we slip into that humanness and we're like, oh, we get hurt. This is, that upset me. But as a sensitive person that is aware, it's like that water off a duck's back, that analogy, it just does not attach when you just go, that's okay, that's where they are, and they're doing the best that they can at this point in time based on the tools that they have. Mm-hmm. And with that internal conversation, it just slips right off us. And we don't have to worry about it. We can just keep moving. With those that are maybe a little bit less aware, this is like a magic power they just don't realize. And so we're highly sensitive and we don't understand why. It is a little fabulous because there's a whole toolbox that they can access when they are being brought to the right person to show them how to access it, because it is like a superpower. You know who to be around, who not to be around, what situation to be in, what situation to remove yourself from. It's phenomenal. And so with embracing that this is actually a magical power that I have, it's like I'm a superhero, but I'm not, because it's like that we can take that and go, okay, I can now just understand this. I need to get someone to support me through this journey so I can be aware of what's going on for me, so I can live life a little bit easier, avoid the things that I don't want to be around, and be with the situations of people that I do, because I'm able to interpret it. And so for me, it's kind of exciting, particularly when we put this with young people that don't understand what's going on from us. Like, let's show them that they have this magical power and embrace that, and let's guide them so they can live life a little bit easier. So that's how I like to think of it.
That's great. And I love that you put the power in the shift of a perception. like shifting that perception just changes everything. Like you're creating miracles everywhere you do that, right?
You so are. And it is, as I said, as soon as you have that internal conversation with yourself about that, it just dissolves and it just disappears. And it's all about being aware.
Yes, that's beautiful. And the more that you focus on that, the more aware you become. So it's like this nice little cycle that you get into a flow with it. That's really great. That's really great. Thank you, Raman. Miranda.
Thank you, Josette.
Yes.
I was going to, I'm echoing what Bronwyn just said. I was going to say that I would encourage HSPs to look at it as a gift. Bronwyn said a superpower. And Josette, when you said it makes that change in the mind when you approach it from that end of the spectrum, as opposed to it being a handicap or an issue or a problem. As soon as we make that shift, it's a gift, it's a superpower. The solutions come to you, and you're in a different frame of mind, and you approach things more positively, and it it takes off from there. So that's how I would reframe it.
I love that. I absolutely love that. You've all shared such a what's the word I want to say, like a treasure. There's so much in the treasure chest. I can't get the word out. So I just really love that. I think that anyone who's watching this is going to see so much value that each of you have to offer, and providing, such great guidance, because you all clearly have expertise in this. So I'd like to move on to one more question. I think we have time for this. And that is healing past traumas, especially if we grew up in stressful households and or situations. An HSP can be more prone to anxiety and depression, and integrating healthy habits and expanding your self-awareness, as you've all talked about, can bring up boundaries and ways to handle this. One of the things that I'd like to ask all of you is, along this topic line, is creating a habit. Do each of you have a way that you approach creating new mindset around their person's highly sensitive gifts into habits that keep the boundaries in place, like Zinzi was talking about before, and giving some people some different guidance on creating habits around that? Jan, please.
Thank you. If I don't remember what I say, I need to get it out quick before I forget. Yes. Well, for me, creating habits has been life-changing, because I use that in my spiritual practice, especially meditation. However, I have found that since I have found out about neuroplasticity, making positive mantras, writing positive mantras for people that they can say to themselves for 21 days actually does change that neuro pathway, and they can start making a habit, a positive habit with that mantra in their lives, which is filled with positive affirmations and changes within the words that help them with self-love and helping them to see the negative in their life in a new way, by even sometimes thanking fear for bringing attention to a certain thing in their lives, and changing the narrative in the brain for that 21 days works. So that's I can marry that up with my spiritual practice as well as my Virgo mind. So and to see it's miraculous. So that's just one thing I would suggest people look into, neuroplasticity, and allow that to actually change your mindset, and therefore gain good habits from that as well, like replacing a negative thought with something loving and kind to yourself, and that will change and make it into a habit for your brain to fall back on. I hope that makes sense. Made sense in my head.
It makes sense.
That's
it makes
good.
Perfect sense. And what I really love that you said is thanking the fear.
Yes.
I think so often we think
turning
of like,
things around. Yes.
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 I think that's really great advice.
Yes. That personally for me has helped me so much to actually thank something that we perceive as negative and or anger. But actually that pinpoints and highlights an emotion that we need to address because it has come for a reason. And then if you put like a personality on fear and ask it to do positive things for you.
That's great. I love that. That's such a good reframe for fear.
Thank you. It works for me.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Zinzi, I saw your hand first, and then Miranda, I'll go right to you.
I thought I'd go next to, as a extending on what Jan was just saying about my thing was about curiosity. So bringing exactly what Jan was saying, trying to understand that fear, what it's telling you, and in terms of habits and structuring your day, bringing that curiosity to what works for you and what doesn't work for you. If you're feeling really distressed in certain situations or really anxious in those situations, bringing some curiosity to that. Am I feeling really unsettled because it's way too early in the morning and I'm not ready for this right now? Is it because of a certain like environment that's it's just not working for you, rather than just letting the emotions take over you? Then we can like restructure the day to really support ourselves so that we can create those healthy habits and like feel into what's really important, so that, you know, if you're not a morning person, like what is the best way to set yourself up for the day if you're not a morning person? Is it about shifting the timetable, having that conversation with your boss, or setting up your business time differently to really support you at the times of day that you work best? Is it about having quiet time or an afternoon nap, or those different things? When we have curiosity and feeling into ourselves, like we've talked about earlier, feeling into our bodies, what's distressing, what feels good, then we can set up ourselves really well in our day.
That's great. Like asking yourself that question, like getting curious, like asking yourself each on everything, so that you're building these good habits for yourself.
Yeah. And then it really takes the emotion out of it. When I was working in a different industry, I kept getting really anxious, and it was just not the right environment for me. And I didn't, at that time, I wasn't that aware. I was like, why is my memory not that great? Why can't I recall things like everyone else? And now I know that, being as a highly sensitive person, I'm taking in so much more information. I have emotional awareness of where that person's at, where they're at, what the lay of the land is. But like, you want me to know exactly what height this thing is or what time that's happening? I was like, it's too much. So I just used to write everything down. So yeah, knowing what works for you and what doesn't, and then what tools, and knowing it's okay to be as you are.
That's so good. So good. Thank you. And Miranda?
I was going to echo a little bit of what Jan said and Cindy said about emotions. I think when we're in the emotional state, we can't sort of get past into the logical mind. And we tend to suppress our emotions because it's not cool, it's not done, it's not a popular thing to do. But if we don't allow our emotions to reveal to us what that pain is, or what that fear is, or where that anxiety is coming from, it's when that glass is full, we can't pour more into it, and that's when the overwhelm comes in. And the one tool that I find that works for me, and I encourage my clients to do too, is to write things down. That two schools of thought, doing it first thing in the morning, or my personal preference, doing it in the evening, because at the end of the day, you've taken in so much. It's nice to sort of just release it, to let it out. Writing it down it also opens up your self-awareness, what you may not have realized consciously, but subconsciously it's there. Writing it down brings it all out, removes emotions from the cellular level, so that the next day you start fresh. That's my one habit that I really, really like, and I find, and I encourage my clients always, to do that. So yeah.
I think that's great. Like what you were saying, how it leads to self-awareness. That's really insightful, something I hadn't heard someone put that way, because we talk about journaling a lot, right? Or writing things down, doing brain dumps, etc. And there's certain techniques that I think we all know lead us to that awareness, yet writing and to get to know yourself better is really a great technique. And I like that you put it in that context. That makes a lot of sense to my brain. I'm sure it will hit other people too in the same way. So thank you very much. Okay, so Katie.
Yeah, I wanted to echo with the emotions. I like to call them our compass. It's our emotional compass, and also to echo the idea or the practice of non-attachment, where if we feel a certain emotion, it's not good, it's not bad, it's just an emotion, right? And when we get curious about it and even playful with it, it reveals things to us, and we gain that awareness of ourselves. You also touched on traumas, and traumas, there's many different types of traumas, right? And some of them are really, really deep, and there's help that is needed for those. But we have just regular traumas from our experience in this lifetime. And when we have the courage, because I feel like it does take courage to face them and to go back to that, and to kind of examine them from the awareness that we have now that we might have not had at the time of the trauma, it reveals patterns, so it reveals certain ways about ourselves. And I feel like patterns are so powerful in when we uncover a pattern and we make this conscious change, because the pattern might be happening unconsciously, and it's the emotions are the compass to lead us there. So it's a big circle of being aware of our emotions, not labeling them. If I feel, let's take an emotion of jealousy, right? Oh, how can I be jealous of somebody, doing this or being that? It's just, oh, look, jealousy came up for me. Oh, what is this about? And just examining it, from this space of, once again, that kindness, like the way you would with somebody that came to you and said, hey, Katie, I'm feeling jealousy come up. And I would hold space for them and be like, okay, let's examine it. I wouldn't say like, oh, that's bad. No, don't, that's not a good emotion. Bring another one to the table. No, it's, okay, that's great. I get excited when I'm like, all right, let's see. Why do you think that is? Or, there's deep meditative practices that help you kind of analyze things. There's, different techniques that help you understand yourself, or where the trauma or where the pattern is coming from. And if you're able to uncover even layers of it, right? Maybe it's not the very center of it, but it's layers of it. And as you break those and like, oh, wow, I can't believe I made that pattern or built that thought or built that way of thinking based on that experience. That was true then, but it's not true now. And I can choose now how I want to do it going forward. So just echoing the awareness and the curiosity, and welcoming the emotions, and also helping them, allowing them to ride out the wave, right? Somebody talked about suppressing emotions, right? It's very important for the emotion to enter your body and completely go through its process, become an observer of that emotion, even so that it can then exit your physical body, your emotional body, your spiritual body without getting stuck, right, and creating a block, which is then could be a trauma itself.
Yes, that's fantastic advice on how to create a habit in that way of like seeing that emotion, letting it go through its process,
Yeah.
and then not attaching to it. Because I think, was it someone else said something around story? It might have been you were saying that as well. That just rides its own wave, and you don't have to say, like Jan talking about thanking fear. You don't have to take the fear and make it something. You can just let it be.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Thank you. And Bronwyn?
So for me, I like to sort of break it into sort of where we are in regards to the trauma process, following a lot on from, you know, what Katie said as well. So often we can be, if we still haven't processed our trauma, we'll still be in that energy of victim. It'll be in there somewhere. And so it's about resetting that for me. So shifting out of that process. Now, there are a few different ways that once again, it depends on where we are on that journey, that I like to use. One of them is I like to take it, okay, if I was considering what I went through, where would the teaching, where would the wisdom be if this was someone else that I would be able to unpack for someone? And quite often that can be a written process, as you like, I need to tell this as a story. There's going to be no blame. There's going to be no victim in here, but it's a story of a situation that has a teaching or lesson at the end. And so through that writing process, you're able to find it because you're doing it not from your own perspective, you're doing it from a teaching place. So to allow yourself to be able to do that, and it gives you time to really look and explore what occurred for you, and to move you out of that victim energy as you maneuver through that. Another process that I like to use is sometimes we've still got a lot of energy still within us. We haven't fully processed it. We do need to get it out of our body at some point in time. And following on from the concept of journaling, but rather than writing in a traditional journal format, because I find that does make it stay in the body a little bit longer, particularly if we haven't taken the angle of what I just expressed from that teaching perspective. I love the concept of voice memo. We can yell, we can scream, we can say everything that we want to say that we haven't been able to say. We can be as ugly, as real. No one's going to hear it because we're just going to process it into our phone. We're not going to listen to it again. And then after a few days, and I don't like to leave it a week, and then I delete it. It's like I got everything out. And as I said, sometimes it can be kind of raw, it can be ugly, it can be messy, but that's okay because no one else gets to experience it. And we get to have a voice as well, because sometimes we don't have a voice in situations as trauma victims, and we need that voice. And so it's a nice way to feel that we've had a voice. And then, you know, there's other processes which are more they're called feed the demon, whereas we manifest sort of visualizations, and we work through a Buddhist process where we do this and we give that, whatever that trauma is or that situation, that person, exactly what they want out of energy that we've manifested until they're happy, so we can release them that way. And then lastly, because we have healing that we need to do on ourselves, this is when I will go into that sort of, a bit when we were talking about changing the things within our brain, that affirmation process at a mirror when it's really awkward and you're smiling and loving yourself at the same time. You can't stand to look at yourself, but you're making yourself do this, and to say those things so we can reset ourselves. And as I said, at the start, it's kind of awful. It feels really uncomfortable, but we just keep doing it, and we keep doing it, and we keep doing it. And then after a while, it actually locks in. It's like, yeah, that's me. Yeah, I've got this. And they're the practices that I like to do, and set that intention from, and I like to do it from the day that, when I wake up in the morning, it's like, all those things that I'm still hanging on to, I'm still healing, I'm still working my way through, it's not going to impact my day. I'm setting my intention. I'm going to go out there and I'm going to be whatever I need to be, whatever I want to be, and then go off on my journey and whatever that looks like.
Gosh, that's really good stuff. Really good stuff. I love the using the voice memo. It speaks to me in the way of witnessing yourself. It's private, yet you're still witnessing yourself. And I think that that's huge for anyone who's been through trauma. Being witnessed is really important. And
it's significant for the healing. We need to have that.
Yeah, exactly. And to give that to yourself is, I think, a different level than being witnessed by someone else in the room. I don't know, that sounds really, really special.
Yeah.
I think also when someone has not had a voice, or they've not been allowed to express themselves, but their voices have been suppressed, this is such a great idea. Such a great idea, Bronwyn. Yeah.
Very good.
And it's also a little bit of a physical release, because it's using our voice, so we're actually doing a physical release out of the body. So that's a great tool. Thanks for sharing, Bronwyn.
Yes.
My pleasure. I find it very powerful. As I said, sometimes we just need to be ugly. We just need to be real. And that's a wonderful way to do it.
Yeah, that's so good. So good. You've all shared such powerful tools and advice on creating habits and different insights that you each use in your businesses as the wonderful healers that you all are. Thank you so much for being here. It's been an honor to facilitate this conversation with you. I've thoroughly enjoyed having each and every one of you as panelists, and I think you've really offered something special to the audience. And thank you so very much for coming and participating in our lovely panel of Innovate, Ignite, and Inspire Conversations That Count. So if you've enjoyed this conversation, I would encourage you to come to our sacred community, where you can join and be a part of any of the groups that are here. And we would love to see you there. And we will be having additional conversations. I think we have something coming up this next week. And I do not have the name of that. Sophia, would you help me out here?
Yes, Josette, yes. Coming up tomorrow, actually this time tomorrow, we will be having soul care and self-care. What is the difference? So that's coming up if anyone wants to join us in the audience, either live or on social media, they're more than welcome.
That's fantastic. Thank you so much, everyone, for coming. And I went ahead and I misspelled some words here, but I'm going to go ahead and send this anyways in the chat of everything that you just shared on new habits. I just got some of your highlights, and that way people can have it in the chat if they wanted it. And thank you so much again for coming and sharing all of your wisdom. Really was an honor to be here with you. Thank you.
If I can just thank everyone for coming on too, and thank you, Josette, for another wonderful panel discussion. Your facilitation. Looking forward to the next one, whenever that is, coming up next month. And as we said, tomorrow is soul care and self-care. We have put everyone's links in comments, so if anyone is watching us live or on a replay, please do reach out to these wonderful women who've got so much wisdom and passion to share. And if anyone wants to know more about us, then again, click on the links in the comments, and as Josette mentioned, you can join us now just for $1. It's $1 Australian dollar for 21 days, and then after that it's just 15 Australian dollars a month, and you get to join not just Jan's tribe, the Faces of the Goddess, many Faces of the Goddess, Josette's tribe, which is gaining self-esteem through heart-centered values, and many, many, many other tribes. So thank you, and thank you for everyone, and we will just say goodbye to Facebook.